I was surprised, I was immensely pleased, and I realized that I had better hurry up and submit the many papers that are still pending on my desk that students and collaborators have sent me. To my work, it means enhanced attention, enhanced quote-unquote respectability for the kind of research I do, and an affirmation for my students and other people who work with me that the area they're working on is important. To my life, in the short run, a flurry of excitement. In the long run, the thought that I have to use the money wisely. Okay, the prize is evidence that Infosys is very serious about encouraging and rewarding high performance in research in India. The existence of such a prize, backed by a very demanding jury, will certainly raise the bar for the Indian scene as a whole, and it is likely to attract people to a life in research. Pleasing affirmation that the work I am doing is considered worthwhile by an independent jury. To others in the field, I think it does convey the message that the area that we are all working on is important and exciting. So it's again an affirmation. In simple terms, if I were to tell a school kid what I'm working on, for example, I would say that I'm interested in fluids containing a large number of particles that can actually move on their own. And if you look at this system and you look at it as a physicist, you want to know, how does this collection, this very strange fluid, behave? I study this mostly theoretically with a little help from computers. Sometimes we actually do computer simulations, which are like doing an experiment on a computer. And sometimes I'm involved in a collaborative way in experiments, either on real living systems and also very often on chemical or mechanical ways of imitating these kinds of behavior. Apart from this, I'm also interested in the flow of weird complex fluids, things that feel like shampoo or feel like gel, which have many surprises in them. I'm also interested in how liquids turn to glass. And then there are other much more technically complicated problems involving a lot of quantum mechanics, which I'm spending a little time on. By the 11th standard, I knew I wanted to be a physicist. I liked physics, and I knew I would do it. Thereafter, because my parents went to Washington for a couple of years, I went to the University of Maryland, where I did my undergraduate studies. I spent a little time there as a graduate student and actually started doing some research, in fact my first research paper, with a senior graduate student there. I then moved to Chicago, continuing to work in what I had started at Maryland, namely general theory of relativity and also some quantum field theory. But then gradually I moved to condensed matter physics, in which I did my PhD. I studied systems which are solid-like in one direction and liquid-like in two. This is not as weird as it seems. In fact, it's a very common structure found in concentrated soap solutions. And this is what I did for my PhD. Thereafter, I was a postdoctoral fellow at the University of Pennsylvania, where I studied many different kinds of condensed matter systems, including glasses, including quasicrystals, colloidal crystals, and so forth. And in 1986, I came to IISc, where I have been ever since. Research as a career, it's wonderful almost all the time. I wouldn't trade it for anything. If, when you say my chosen field, you mean the particular problems I'm working on now, well, they were a natural thing to work on given my interest in phenomena far from equilibrium and my training in the methods of hydrodynamics. So it is natural to take those over to problems with a biological orientation. More generally, if you mean condensed matter physics, well, condensed matter physics is fantastic because it's a place where you see really interesting collective phenomena over very accessible scales. This is an inexhaustible source of new and interesting phenomena and problems. As for motivation to continue working, the point is, look, it's a field where you get to go on thinking about new things, you get to wonder about things, you get to work with young people, and when you've done a nice piece of work, you have the added pleasure that you get to talk to people about it, you get to tell people about it, and you have an audience. So that's what motivates you. So eventually, I think our work on active matter will be relevant to a complete understanding of the mechanics and statistical properties of cells, tissue, and organisms. The field involved in this case is biology, which is a fantastic source of new kinds of problems for physicists to think about. The Infosys Prize in this context will also help because it will draw many more people to the field from different disciplines, and that interaction will give rise to something new. Follow your curiosity, don't be afraid to try something new, work across disciplines while rooted in a discipline.